Kitase Kazuhiro is your average salaryman who leaves the office promptly every day, just like any other worker in Japan. But his routine takes a bizarre turn after hours. Every night, he takes a shower, changes into his pajamas, and drifts off to sleep, only to wake up in a fantasy world where he experiences countless strange adventures. In this dream world, Kazuhiro faces life-threatening situations, only to die and wake up in his bed again. One night, after wandering into a dragon's lair, Kazuhiro meets his end once more. But when he wakes up, something is different. His elf friend Mary is lying next to him in bed, as if nothing happened. This marks the beginning of a surreal and often humorous life, where Kazuhiro must balance his day-to-day life with the chaos of these strange dreams. As he lives on this new reality, he finds himself entangled in more than just a regular fantasy world. There's magic, danger, and a friendship that grows in unexpected ways. But what happens when these two worlds collide? And how will Kazuhiro handle the strange yet heartfelt bond that forms with Mary, the elf who now lives under his roof? Everyone has an abnormality or two. There are people with great creativity, people who can easily draw masterpieces, and people who look perfect without effort. He happens to have an abnormality like that. This is Kitase. His office mates were trying to get him to join them for drinks, but, once again, he politely turned them down. They were used to it by now, knowing that Kitase always leaves the office right on time, so they didn't press him or try to keep him around. Kitase Kazuhiro. He's known to prioritize leaving on time over career advancement, because he is a very ordinary salaryman. What does he do after getting home and quickly changing into his pajamas? Perhaps it's his interest or his reason to live. Maybe it's easier to explain if we get right into it. First things first, Kitase can't forget his bento and tea. After that, he'd jump straight into bed and fall asleep. It's a simple routine, but it works for him, even if it seems a bit strange. So many little tasks, yet it's all part of his daily life. But here's the twist, he's now in a completely different world. Ever since he was a kid, Kitase has been dreaming about a fantasy world. He'd imagine wielding swords, shields, and magic, fighting monsters and going on adventures. He's read countless stories about battles in worlds full of magic, participating in wars between countries, and exploring massive labyrinths. Those dreams were a constant part of his life, and continue to this day, giving him a sense of excitement and joy. However, there's one problem. His dreams feel way too real. It's rough getting violently woken up after being killed by monsters. But then again, it's just a dream. Even though it always ends with him thinking, well, that was a nice dream, when he wakes up, it's still amazing to experience such incredible scenery, even if it's only in his sleep. He made his way towards this fresh running water, only to see his cute face on the reflection. He has aged quite a bit, but he has barely grown in his dream world. Someone called him, and when he looked back, it was Mary. Maria Bell. Mary for short. She's an elf, he knows. Despite her gorgeous appearance, she has lived for 100 years. And by the way, his name in this world is Kazuhiro. Still kinda hates his old self for typing his name wrong in the setup. Kazuhiro knew that Mary had joined the Magician Guild, so she must have been busy. It was rare for him to see her in a place like this. Before she could even respond, Mary started panicking when she noticed Nuzzle, a bird Kazuhiro often fed breadcrumbs to. The ruins nearby were called Nuzzle Nuzzle, and that's where the bird got its name. Mary guessed that maybe Kazuhiro's breadcrumbs were just really tasty, but Kazuhiro thought it was more likely that the food in this world was too bland, so the bird was just excited to get anything. Mary completely agreed, complaining about how awful the food seemed to be no matter where you went. Then, curious, she asked where he got such delicious food. Strangely enough, Kazuhiro had somehow managed to bring his bento into the dream world with him. The topic shifted when Kazuhiro asked Mary if she wanted to go explore the nearby ruins. At first, she wasn't interested in the idea at all, but when Kazuhiro promised to treat her to some bento if she joined, her attitude completely changed. It was obvious she loved bento, and there was no way she'd turn down that offer. And now, here they were, heading to the ruins together. This place once belonged to a civilization that was suddenly wiped out a long time ago. Even though it was an era without conflict, the people of this civilization disappeared quickly. The common belief is that they fell victim to some unknown disease. However, it's hard to believe that a civilization, which was also the birthplace of magic, could have fallen in such a simple and rudimentary way. Because of this, it's said that there are 7 mysteries surrounding the ruins. Mary asked if Kazuhiro was planning to solve all of them. Kazuhiro shrugged, saying it didn't matter if they couldn't solve them all. He just wanted to have some fun with her while exploring. The inside of the ruins were big. You wouldn't expect it if you looked at it from the outside. Kazuhiro said that this used to be a big city after all. The entrance was just a sewer, but to be able to stand here for 1,000 years amazes him. Surely the technology they used was amazing. Kazuhiro asked if they could use it for construction in town, but Mary thinks that this would be impossible, since it's maintained by the location's energy, and not in mana input, so its effect is limited to this place. It would require someone with high ability. Kazuhiro mentioned that his country experiences a lot of earthquakes, so he really envied resistance magic. Mary, curious, asked where exactly he was from. He told her he was from Japan, though it wasn't on any maps. He was speaking sincerely when he suddenly noticed Mary staring at his back. Well, it wasn't him she was looking at, it was the bento he had brought. Mary commented that it was a great spot to relax and eat, and with sparkling eyes she grabbed the bento. She took several quick bites, clearly enjoying it, so Kazuhiro handed her some tea to help wash it down. She then asked what kind of food she was eating. Kazuhiro smiled and explained that it was called inari and chikuzeni. Mary smiled and said it was definitely the right choice to come with him. Kazuhiro casually replied that he could treat her to food anytime. She just needed to come and hang out whenever she was free. Mary mentioned that she was busy with her research, but she didn't mind taking breaks every now and then. Both Kazuhiro and Mary knew it was time to leave when they spotted a monster blocking their path. To Mary's surprise, Kazuhiro suddenly ran toward it. She was completely flabbergasted, but it turned out that Kazuhiro was friends with the monster. He explained that he had learned the monster language over time, especially while fighting them. He had been attacked so often that it took him about 3 years to get fluent in it. He then warned Mary to be careful, mentioning that there was a dragon laying eggs further ahead. But despite the warning, Kazuhiro seemed curious about the eggs, saying he had heard that dragon eggs were quite fatty and wanted to take a closer look. Dragons were known to be ferocious and dangerous during their egg-laying season, so it took a lot of courage to get anywhere near them. Mary was about to say something to Kazuhiro when she realized he wasn't behind her. Panicking, she ran toward him, only to find that they had ended up in a dark, hidden area. It was so pitch black that Mary had to pull out a cloak to cover them, allowing them to see even a little bit of the surroundings. They both stood in awe as they saw the massive dragon before them. It was said that this particular dragon produced mana just by breathing, making it a creature of incredible power. While Mary was absorbed in observing the dragon, Kazuhiro was panicking, realizing just how close they were to each other under the small cloak. It wasn't big enough for both of them to fit comfortably. Mary noticed Kazuhiro's discomfort and scolded him, saying that if this really was the magic dragon, they needed to take it seriously. After all, dragons like these only laid eggs once every 1,000 years. She added that just one drop of its drool could fetch a fortune, which excited her greatly. Kazuhiro, however, reminded her that elves weren't supposed to be materialistic, and the two of them began bickering like an old couple. Their playful argument was interrupted when they noticed the dragon's eyes had opened and were now staring directly at them. Both of them started to panic, especially when Kazuhiro realized that his supposed escape route was locked. They were trapped, and the situation quickly became unavoidable. If this was truly the magic dragon, its level would be over 1,000, and Kazuhiro, being only level 72, stood no chance against it. The fear and reality of the situation hit them both as they realized they were completely outmatched. Now, they'd been driven into a corner. They both hugged each other as the blazing fire from the dragon's mouth hit them. It's death this time. He wanted to see the egg at least. He woke up after that. It was 3 a.m. in the morning. He was kinda disappointed even though he finally got to play with Mary, if only it were just a bit longer. It seems like his wish came true. The greater abnormality entered his life. An elf appeared in his room. Kazuhiro found himself standing awkwardly in front of a display of lingerie, a situation he never imagined he'd be in. Just an hour earlier, he had woken up to the unexpected sight of Mary lying next to him in his bed. Her confusion was evident when she saw his true form. After all, he looked far younger in the other world compared to how he appeared here. Trying to ease the tension, Kazuhiro reassured her that he would explain everything in due time. For now, his primary concern was ensuring she wasn't injured after being caught in the dragon's breath just moments ago. However, as he spoke, his gaze shifted to the floor, shyness taking over him. Mary noticed his unusual behavior, and when she realized why he was so flustered, a scream erupted from her, echoing through the room. Kazuhiro confidently reassured her that he had not acted inappropriately or touched her in any way that might cause concern. However, before he could begin explaining himself, Mary interrupted and instructed him to bring some clothes to help her cover up. This led to him deciding to take a day off from work so he could go shopping. Despite searching the room, he couldn't find her clothes or equipment. Still, he couldn't think of any reason why she appeared here. In the first place, that world, he thought, was merely a dream. With lingerie awkwardly clutched in his hands, Kazuhiro couldn't help but notice the hushed whispers and judgmental stares from the people around him. It was at that moment he decided, next time, he'd definitely go shopping with Mary instead. After enduring what felt like an eternity of humiliating shopping, he finally returned home. He found Mary looking at the window, completely confused, wondering where she was. It was only natural for her to be shocked. What had been nothing more than a fleeting dream to him was, in reality, an entirely different world for her, one she had never seen before. But instead of staying shocked, Mary's eyes lit up with excitement. She looked around the high-rise, totally amazed, like she couldn't believe Kazuhiro lived in such a fancy place. To her, it probably looked like he was some rich guy. She was practically bouncing with excitement, kind of like a kid visiting an amusement park for the first time. Kazuhiro couldn't help but chuckle. It reminded him of how amazed he'd been when he first saw Mary's world. Honestly, they were more alike than he thought. That curiosity and excitement they both had, it was definitely something they shared. They were both on the balcony, and Mary was interested in the tower ahead. She asked Kazuhiro if a high-ranked wizard lives there. Kazuhiro replied that it's the sky tree. He added that it's the cherry blossom season, so he asked if Mary would like to take a look around. Since it's a rare opportunity, Kazuhiro would like to show her around the place where he lives. Mary was so excited that she came running towards him with the towel wrapped around her, falling on the floor. That time, they were indeed scorched by the dragon's breath. However, he don't get injured when he does in his dreams. He'll wake up over here instead. Other than the fact that he could bring bento or tea over for some reason, his dream did not interfere with real life. So, he couldn't answer the question hanging on his brain. Why did she appear here? He then realized realized something. Maybe this is the same case as him. He can't bring his equipment and valuables from there to this world. The difference between them is that he was already wearing pajamas. If that world in his dreams actually existed, then because he was hugging her when he died, his ability to wake up in Japan when I die transported her here too. In short, he brought her along. Kazuhiro's thoughts stopped when Mary came out wearing the clothes he bought. It was clear she liked them. She said she'd never seen fabric with such beautiful stitching before, but started to worry they might be too expensive. Kazuhiro just smiled and told her it was worth it. He said Mary was so beautiful that no one else could pull off the outfit like she could. Hearing that, Mary felt relieved. No matter how different he looked, to her, he was still the same Kazuhiro. Kazuhiro decided it would be a good idea for them to eat out, so he asked Mary what kind of food she'd like. Mary thought for a moment before saying she didn't want anything with a bad smell. She mentioned she'd prefer something fresh, but made it clear she wasn't trying to be picky, and would leave the choice up to him. The only thing she insisted on was that he explain why she had ended up in this world. Before heading out though, Kazuhiro handed her a hat, and told her to wear it. He explained that there were no elves in this world, and her pointed ears would definitely attract unwanted attention. The hat would help them avoid causing a scene while they were out. Mary, understanding his concern, wore the hat, and they got ready to leave. Well, until this morning, Kazuhiro thought that his dream was just a dream. But now that this is happening right before his eyes, he has to treat it as a reality. Right now, there's an elf in his room, and that's something that nobody would believe, but he has to. And so, with excitement brimming in their hearts, they took a step towards their daily lives. But before that, there are a lot of obstacles to overcome, and that would be his car. Mary is a lot calmer now. One cannot become a fine magician by ignoring what one doesn't understand, she says. Streets and pavements, the importance of traffic signals. Mary probably feels less fearful after understanding these concepts. Mary believes that Japan is a really peaceful place, since there aren't any monsters to deal with. Kazuhiro agrees. Indeed, it is a great country where everyone leads tranquil lives. Though, Japanese people look up to foreign cultures too, but there are also foreigners who envy their cultures being an island nation. Kazuhiro thought that explaining the outside world to her like this was nice. When they finally arrived at the restaurant, Kazuhiro showed Mary where they needed to leave their shoes. Mary hesitated, her eyes darting suspiciously at the rack, worried they might get stolen. Little did she know, Kazuhiro brought her cheap ones. After getting seated, Kazuhiro placed their orders. The waitress, cheerful and polite, told them to enjoy. Mary looked puzzled, and that's when Kazuhiro realized he'd been speaking elf language to her. He quickly explained that the waitress had told them to enjoy themselves, and also mentioned how fascinated she was by Mary's adorable appearance, leaving Mary even more curious about human customs. But Mary was surprised. None of the staff or townspeople seemed wary at all, which made her wonder if they were just naturally polite. Kazuhiro reminded her that this world doesn't have monsters, so there's no reason for people to be cautious. He also explained that as one of the most respected island nations, their culture emphasizes hospitality and respect. He encouraged Mary to relax, saying it's not every day they get to experience this, so she should stop overthinking and just enjoy the moment. Kazuhiro then started explaining why Mary was in this world. He told her that this place was called Japan, a small island that couldn't be found on any map in her world. The real tough part came next. Kazuhiro admitted that he'd been having dreams where Mary was always there, but this time, when he woke up, she was right beside him. That's when he realized the world he had thought was just a dream was actually real. Kazuhiro explained that he had always been exploring alone and never experienced death with someone else, which he thought might be the reason Mary couldn't reach this world. From his words, Mary understood that she might be dead. However, Kazuhiro clarified that it might seem that way, but she wasn't actually dead. If she sleeps here, she should be able to return to her world. Elves generally don't believe in an afterlife because, unlike humans, they become spirits after death. Kazuhiro realized that telling Mary that both worlds were real was probably the best way to explain things to her. As for her final question about his age, Kazuhiro was ready to answer, but he had a feeling it was going to be another tricky one to explain. Kazuhiro said that it's probably because time works differently in their worlds, or maybe he only ages in her world when he's dreaming. Mary thinks it's the latter. He ages slower compared to other humans. Curious, she asked his age, and when Kazuhiro replied that he was 25, she was shocked. She expected people his age to have thick hair and a bunch of kids. Based on his youthful appearance, she never would have guessed he was already 25. Since the food had arrived, Kazuhiro took a break from their conversation. Mary was intrigued by the cutlery and complimented it to the waitress. However, since she spoke in elf language, the waitress couldn't understand, so Kazuhiro translated for her. Mary then tried tempura, dipping it in sauce, and was so delighted she couldn't stop eating. She was hesitant about the raw fish, but decided to try it when Kazuhiro encouraged her. The moment she tasted it, she felt like she was walking on clouds. Seeing her so happy, Kazuhiro promised to take her out for sushi next time. After the meal, Mary wanted to express her gratitude in Japanese, so she asked Kazuhiro how to say thank you. When she tried it, the waitress couldn't contain her delight at how cute Mary sounded. Afterward, Kazuhiro took her to a park, since the weather was perfect for sightseeing. As they walked, Mary marveled at the cherry blossoms in full bloom. Kazuhiro explained that the cherry blossom season is a big deal in Japan, and people want to enjoy it to the fullest. With a smile, he welcomed Mary to Japan officially. and she returned his smile, making him feel a bit awkward. After their time together under the cherry blossoms, well, let's call it a date, Kazuhiro asked Mary if she wanted to take a bath. As he prepared some toiletries for her, he casually mentioned that if she ever managed to return safely to her own world, it might be best for her to stay there. But it seemed like Mary wasn't even listening. She was completely distracted, staring at his bathtub in awe. She thought Kazuhiro had finally learned how to use nonverbal magic, especially when she pressed a button, and water started flowing automatically. Kazuhiro chuckled and handed her a selection of bath salts, explaining that they were great for enjoying different scents while relaxing in the tub. Mary's eyes lit up with excitement as she sniffed each one carefully, taking her time before finally picking her favorite. As Mary let herself relax in the warm bath, her mind wandered back to their earlier conversation. She found herself asking Kazuhiro about the possibility of not being able to return to her world. To her surprise, he admitted that he had thought about it too, and suggested that, if it came to that, she could stay and live with him. His words caught her off guard, and her cheeks turned red. Maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be such a bad thing. In fact, it might even be wonderful. When Mary stepped out of the bath, a delicious aroma greeted her. Kazuhiro's home-cooked meal was nearly ready. The scent filled the air, instantly making her stomach growl. Kazuhiro told her it would be done soon, and suggested she take a seat and wait. But Mary wasn't paying attention. Instead, she was completely drawn to the stove, hovering near it like a curious firefly, captivated by whatever Kazuhiro was cooking. After a little while, Kazuhiro's cutlet was finally ready. It was just a side dish, nothing too fancy, but it turned out pretty decent. For Mary, though, it wasn't just decent, it was easily the best thing she'd had all day. She couldn't stop smiling as she savored every bite. Kazuhiro told her that he could make as many as she wanted, which only made her more excited. He explained that the ingredients in the other world didn't have much flavor, which was why he always made sure to bring a bento when he was there. Mary nodded in agreement. Honestly, after tasting something this good, everything else would seem bland in comparison. That much she was certain of. She then realized that Kazuhiro had to think how he was able to bring bento and tea over. Yes, he can bring those, but some items like flashlights and watches can't be brought over. Curious, Mary innocently asked what a flashlight was. In response, Kazuhiro grabbed a flashlight, turned it on, and held it under his face, attempting to scare her, but Mary didn't even flinch. Instead, she stared at him with this expression, saying she supposed she'd already gotten used to the strange things in this world's civilization. Kazuhiro had a theory, though it was just a guess. He thought that items tied to this world's culture or advanced technology couldn't be brought to the other world. Even simple things like pens and notebooks didn't work there. If that was the case, then it seemed like most items beyond basic necessities wouldn't make it through either. Curious, Mary asked if he was performing some sort of special ritual to bring those items over. Kazuhiro shook his head and explained that all he did was place them on his bed before sleeping. That was it. No rituals, no magic spells, just that simple act somehow made it happen. Mary started to think about it carefully. If only food and a few basic items could pass through to the other world, then maybe someone or something was controlling it. If that were true, then there had to be a reason behind it all. She began to wonder if her being brought to this world was no coincidence. Perhaps there was a purpose behind it, and if that were the case, maybe Kazuhiro had a role to play in all of this. She couldn't help but feel that there was a possibility he had some kind of mission, even if he wasn't aware of it yet. Kazuhiro initially thought Mary was just talking about the bento, but then she suddenly asked if someone had ever asked him for a favor or tasked him with something unusual. That question caught him off guard. He had never considered such a possibility until now. For him, the whole experience had always been about having fun and enjoying adventures in what he believed were his dreams. Mary also thinks this made sense. If there was no favor or mission, then it made sense why he hadn't realized it wasn't just a dream. But if that wasn't the case, she asked if there were any specific triggers that caused him to travel to the other world. Kazuhiro paused, trying to think, but eventually said that he couldn't remember. After all, he'd been doing this since he was a child. It was just a natural part of his life by now. Kazuhiro said it couldn't be helped, but he promised Mary that if he ever thought of anything, he would tell her right away. For now, though, they needed to focus on the more immediate issues. They quickly came up with a plan. They decided not to even think about smuggling the dragon's egg. Even if they managed to escape, the dragon would never let them live once it found out they knew about its lair. If things went badly, it might chase them down, and they would never be safe. Kazuhiro then asked Mary if she knew anything else about the magic dragon. He wanted to make sure they understood what they were up against. Mary thought for a moment and recalled what she knew. She told him that the dragon's intelligence surpassed that of humans. Its breaths created mana, and it didn't always stay underground. In fact, there were records of it destroying islands, causing volcanoes to erupt, and even fighting against demons and humans in the past. The dragon was not only incredibly powerful, but had a long destructive history. This information was helpful, but Kazuhiro wanted to know more about the dragon's personality. He was hoping for something a bit more specific. Mary, however, seemed confused by his question. She didn't really think about dragons in terms of personalities. Instead, she mentioned that she knew the dragon's scales could create mana, making them incredibly valuable. She joked that if they managed to get a scale, they'd be rich. Mary added that the dragon had once turned into a human and entered the capital, driven by curiosity. This piqued Kazuhiro's interest. If it was true, there must have been a reason why the dragon chose to stay in the capital. Maybe it was there to gather information, acquire property, or perhaps to search for something that could only be found there. However, Mary replied that it did absolutely nothing there. According to the records, the dragon had stayed in the capital for a few days before promptly disappearing. Mary tried to remember more details and mentioned that it was in a port town called Oddsroy. At first, Kazuhiro thought that sounded impossible, but now he wondered if it might be true. He hoped that it likes sightseeing. After some time, they decided it was finally time for bed. Kazuhiro, however, completely forgot that this was yet another problem on his plate. He gulped nervously and tried to convince himself that everything would be okay. He wanted to believe in himself, to trust that he could handle whatever came next. We're all rooting for you, Kazuhiro. The experiment starts now, and both of them think that they should get closer to each other. They were hugging each other closely back then after all. Kazuhiro thought that they should sleep in the same posture as back then, but Mary thinks that they should stick even closer. The experiment was a success, and they made it back safely. Well, almost. Just as they thought they were in the clear, the magic dragon noticed them. They barely escaped being trampled by its massive tail. Kazuhiro quickly pulled Mary close, holding her tightly as they faced the dragon. Despite the overwhelming danger, Kazuhiro took a deep breath and bravely spoke first. He apologized for trespassing into the dragon's lair, explaining that he just wanted to see the eggs. He also mentioned that he had brought Mary along against her will, and hoped the dragon would at least allow her to leave unharmed. Mary, on the other hand, had no idea what he was saying. Kazuhiro was speaking in the dragon's language, and all she could do was watch in confusion. Dragons are known to act on powerful maternal instincts when guarding their eggs, and Kazuhiro knew they had to approach this situation carefully. They had spent some time strategizing the night before, and the most important thing was to show the dragon that they meant no harm. To help appease its anger, Kazuhiro had prepared something special, a beer. Kazuhiro remembered that he had once visited Oddsroy, a town known for making alcohol from malt barley. Besides its port activities, the town didn't have much else going on. He now thought that if the magic dragon had come to Oddsroy and done nothing, the reason might have been to indulge in the local drink. It seemed like the perfect offering to show respect and try to calm the dragon. The dragon was clearly intrigued by the fact that Kazuhiro knew the language of lower dragons and understood its interests. It was a rare thing, and the dragon couldn't help but be curious. Despite having blown them both away the day before, it was still a mystery to the dragon why they were here. It wondered what had brought them back. The dragon told them that if they can tell why this happened, he can spare their lives. And here they were, standing before the magic dragon's eggs. This time, the dragon seemed at ease, even laughing at how strange it was that the two of them wanted to see his eggs. She warned them that being too curious could lead to dangerous situations, and that they needed to be more careful from now on. Kazuhiro agreed with the dragon. Mary noticed that the floor felt warm beneath them, and Kazuhiro guessed it might be to keep the eggs warm. Mary, however, explained that it was because the spirits were very active in this area. Dragons, she added, could control spirits much more freely than humans. While Mary continued to admire the eggs, the dragon spoke up. He mentioned that he had heard from his associates about people living in their dreams, and to think that it was actually true made him chuckle. The dragon seemed to have taken a liking to Kazuhiro. It had been bored waiting for the eggs to hatch, so, in the meantime, it decided to pass the time by interacting with them. However, the dragon seemed to be intrigued by a different scent Kazuhiro was carrying. Aside from the malt, it was the smell of katsudon from the bento he had brought yesterday. Since the floor had warmed it up, the aroma was now filling the air. Kazuhiro quickly offered that if the dragon didn't like the smell, he could move it away. The dragon realized it was getting a bit difficult to continue talking like this, especially since she hadn't had much to drink from the beer they brought earlier. So, she decided to do something about it. Meanwhile, the two of them were excited to witness the dragon's magic up close. Mary told Kazuhiro that there was a lot of concentrated magic in the air right now. She added that human magic didn't compare to this. It was something from another dimension entirely. From the dragon's mouth, a figure emerged. The dragon had transformed into a human. This was a draconian, born from the very core of the dragon. It had been some time since she had last taken this human form, so she asked if she looked strange to humans. Kazuhiro quickly reassured her, saying that she was very beautiful. The draconian then commanded him to bring the drink and the katsudon to her. Kazuhiro said that his katsudon is nothing of note. She blushed immediately and tried to cover up by saying that she just wanted a sample of it. Mary was confused, so Kazuhiro leaned in and whispered that the draconian wanted his katsudon. The draconian continued speaking, saying that they wouldn't leave empty-handed, and offered one of her scales. Not just any scale, but one that still had mana in it, attached to her body. Mary, who was intrigued by the offer, thought it would be a great idea to accept the deal. The draconian began digging into the food, and it was quite a sight for both Kazuhiro and Mary. Wanting to be polite, Kazuhiro also offered her some of the beer. After taking a sip, the draconian couldn't hide her happiness, and it was obvious from her expression. She asked if all humans eat treats like this. Kazuhiro replied that this dish and alcohol didn't come from their world, which he admitted was a shame for her. Just as she was pondering the idea, she jokingly considered the possibility of conquering a human settlement. Kazuhiro turned to Mary and asked if the scale was really such a big deal. He didn't know since he wasn't a magician. Mary explained that it was worth a lot. In fact, any magician would probably give up everything they own for one. A mana-supplying item like that could increase a magician's abilities and would fetch an unbelievable price. While they were discussing this, the draconian was was mourning over the empty bento box. Seeing this, Kazuhiro offered her another one, saying he had more to share. The Draconian, feeling that Kazuhiro couldn't go unrewarded, handed him a blue rock, explaining that humans loved it. She went on to say that it was a rock soaked in her blood, which had seeped into the stones while she was laying her eggs. Mary froze for a moment upon hearing this, before quickly shouting at Kazuhiro to trade his bento box for the rock right away. It was time for them to leave, but before they could go, the Draconian had one last request. She wanted them to return, but with those bento boxes, and specifically, she wanted 4 of them. Mary was still in disbelief that they had the dragon's blood in their possession. Kazuhiro, sensing her uncertainty, offered his hand for support, and Mary took it without hesitation, causing him to blush. The dragon's blood was said to have the power to cure any illness, and along with the scale, it was incredibly valuable. Mary was unsure what to do with them. Kazuhiro, on the other hand, considered selling the items or perhaps sharing them with someone who was sick. But, because they're so valuable, people will find out where they got it from. In short, it's impossible to keep it a secret. The magic dragon only lays its eggs once every 1,000 years, and Mary realized that the people who once inhabited these ruins must have tried to claim them. The dragon, relentless in its pursuit, followed them into the underground city, causing the citizens to flee. Since then, the dragon had made this place its lair. This realization sent a chill down Mary's spine, but everything seemed to match what they knew about the history of this place. She was certain it was safer for Kazuhiro to hold on to the valuable items for now. Once the magic dragon's eggs hatch, they could figure out what to do with them, but for the moment, keeping them close seemed like the best option. Kazuhiro worried that he might lose the valuable items, but Mary reassured him that she wouldn't get mad at him. She smiled and said that someday they could boast in a tavern, saying, "We've met the legendary magic dragon before." Kazuhiro chuckled and replied that all they really did was watch her eat katsudon, but it was still something they'd be able to brag about to the kids one day. Hearing that, Mary's heart warmed, flattered by the thought. After everything that had happened, Kazuhiro realized he was feeling hungry. Mary suggested they go to Sissel, a place known for its light meals, though she warned him that he wouldn't get full no matter how much he ate. Then, Kazuhiro wondered where she would be staying for the night. He was heading back to Japan, so anywhere would be fine for him, but he thought it might be tough for her. Mary, however, reassured him that it was no problem. She was going with him after all, and it didn't matter where she slept. She was even fine with staying in the wild with him. The creature greeted his grandpa, who called him Mui. Grandpa asked if Mui had been spotted by anyone. Mui reassured him that he had made sure to hide in the moonlight before coming, and even removed any feathers outside to avoid being noticed. Grandpa, not wanting to waste any time, instructed Mui to clean it, but only to rinse it in water at the back. The Neko tribe is incredibly weak as a species. They aren't capable of holding their own against monsters, nor are they able to approach humans. Their rarity and timid nature makes them commercially sought after, and some are even used to refine magic catalysts. And that's why, the survivors of the Neko tribe draw attention from humans easily. Before they went to sleep, Grandpa asked Mui if he wanted to hear a story, but before starting, he rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a bright stone for Mui to see. This stone was a relic from their past, a magic stone that their race once handled. Over 100 years ago, magic stones like this were common among them. However, despite its extraordinary nature, the village that once treasured these stones was long gone, destroyed in the chaos that wiped out their kind. Rumor had it that the discovery of the magic stone had awakened a monster, causing their ancestors to be driven from their homes. The few remaining stones were stolen by humans, and since then, their people have been forced to live lives on the run. Grandpa told Mui that they must treasure these peaceful times, no matter the cost. Mui, recalling the stories, remembered that the ruins where their village had once stood were called Uja Peak. Ever since Kazuhiro unintentionally brought Mary from his dream world, they've been living under the same roof. Right now, Mary is trying to learn Japanese. While listening to the TV, she writes down the words in her notebook, practicing as best as she can. If you were to ask Kazuhiro, he would probably say that she's taking on more than she can handle. Mary noticed Kazuhiro and greeted him. Today, the minced meat was on sale, so Kazuhiro told her that he'd be making gyoza. He then asked if Mary drinks. She replied that she doesn't handle alcohol well, so she figured she'd have something mild instead. While Kazuhiro was gathering all the ingredients, Mary decided to introduce herself in Japanese, letting him hear what she had learned. Kazuhiro was surprised, especially since it had only been 2 days since she started studying, and yet she was already working on grammar. Mary explained that she focused on memorizing useful phrases first, then piecing them together. When learning the languages of other races, he begins by finding a starting point, and from there he will look for and fill in the gaps in his understanding. Mary may look young, but the air she gives off makes her seem like she's almost 100 years old, as expected of an elf. Kazuhiro brought a glass of wine and asked Mary to smell it for him. However, Mary seemed to have a bit of a smelling fetish, as instead of focusing on the wine, she ended up sniffing Kazuhiro instead. Once the gyoza was ready, Mary finally had a taste, and as expected, she really enjoyed it. She said that the crunchiness of freshly made gyoza was the best, and it paired wonderfully with the alcohol. After finishing all the gyoza, she expressed her heartfelt thanks to Kazuhiro. He replied that gyoza is inexpensive, so if she ever craved it again, she should just let him know. While Kazuhiro was doing the dishes, Mary asked if it was true that he was level 72, because she's only level 27. To To cover her embarrassment, she quickly explained that she's been learning both spirit magic and sorcery at the same time, which makes leveling up especially difficult for her. She then proudly added that she's a spirit sorceress, a rare class only attained by a select few trained by masters. Even her predecessor, who was a master in the art, had long since passed away. If that's the case, Kazuhiro said he could recommend a hunting ground for her. With her skills, he believed she could level up by 5 levels in just one day. He suggested that he could draw in the monsters and let her deal the final blow. His plan was to bring in monsters around level 40, weaken them to the brink of death, and then let Mary finish them off to get all the experience. At that pace, taking down one monster per minute should be quite manageable and leisurely for her. Mary looked at him bewildered and asked himself if he said something weird. He feels like he has been asleep faster lately. Could it be due to another person's warmth? 2 months have passed. They already spent this time together. If Mary disappears like that, he wonders if he'll be able to sleep as soundly. Another fresh morning greeted the two in this world. Today, they will be focusing on leveling up, and Kazuhiro will lead the way to the hunting grounds, to the ruins at Yuja Peak. Earlier, Mary was really excited, but after learning that the ruins he was talking about were 2 countries away, she lost all the excitement. She believes that it will take a week for them to get there, even by carriage. Kazuhiro said that he'll use a skill to quickly bring them there, so he asked Mary to hold on tight. They made their way towards this hole. It was so dark that Mary thought they were in a cave. It was Kazuhiro's movement skill, Train, the journey's guide. Plus, they are in an underground world, so it's really dark. Kazuhiro moved, and now they're speeding through the darkness. This is a long-distance movement skill. It's a skill that can be used once every day, by making offerings to the god of travels. Mary asked if merchants see this scenery all the time. Kazuhiro knows that some of them do, but it takes a really long time to master, so they must have chosen to be merchants at a really young age. Kazuhiro then told Mary that there's a weight limit, but since she's light, they should be fine. Mary, kinda embarrassed, said that he can now put her down, but Kazuhiro guesses that it will take them about 20 minutes to get to their destination, but just in case, he wanted Mary to stay close by. He doesn't know what will happen if she strays too far away. Speaking of which, he forgot to mention that the duration varies. Apparently, someone stayed here for a year or something. This made Mary angry a bit. Kazuhiro would like to help her level efficiently, so he asked Mary if she could show her status screen. Mary agreed, but she warned Kazuhiro that he must not tell it to anyone else. The Magician's Guild is rather crafty. There's a hierarchy based on levels. Mary said that the others can't beat her in prestige or ability, so they went for levels. They've got her in their sights. Mary was also curious on Kazuhiro's level, so she asked if she could see his status screen as well. After seeing her advance chanting, improve accuracy, and improve memory, it has convinced Kazuhiro that Mary really specialized in spirit magic and sorcery. He then pointed to a portion on the screen and said that Mary should learn this. It was called Grand Experience Skill. Mary had a lot of rivals, so she was thinking of choosing skills that would instantly boost her abilities. Kazuhiro said that if she doesn't need it anymore, she can just reset it when she levels up. Mary became intrigued when she saw Kazuhiro's class. It's called Illusory Swordsman. It's something she has never heard before. Kazuhiro couldn't put them in a good explanation, so he just ended up saying it's like a swindler. Mary laughed so hard after hearing it. It was such a vague description for her. Kazuhiro always puts on that sleepy face, so she thinks he fights while snoring in his sleep. In his defense, he was just born with such a face. So, first, let's explain the classes in this world for a bit. According to Mary, advanced classes that start from the knight class are the most popular. Being a knight doesn't mean that you'd own land, but it's a job where you can be employed by kingdoms and have a steady income. Magic knights and holy knights. There are countless applications for each class every year, but whether there are people suited for those is a totally different question. Kazuhiro usually avoided those places, so the way he trains is rather unorthodox. He has never fought with someone at his level, so he doesn't know whether he's strong. Magicians like Mary live to unveil the mysteries of the ancient secret arts. They are employed by countries to stay ahead of the game. Usually, they boast the highest firepower during a war. Wars are very scary. Kazuhiro has participated in quite a few, but now that he knows this world isn't just a dream, he doesn't think he will be going for another. Neither, Mary says that if she has to leave the guild, she will. Kazuhiro asked if that would be really okay. She said that at her level, she can probably get by with a bit of money. She got more curious when she saw this particular fishing level. She looked at Kazuhiro with such judgment when she saw that he even had speak language, taking up one of his precious skill slots. She feels like he isn't taking this world very seriously. Kazuhiro defended himself and said that it's one of his few hobbies. He can say with confidence that fishing is the best way to enjoy our great Mother Nature to the fullest. And also, languages are important skills for broadening your horizons. Mary should have known. He was just playing around. There's a holiday next month called Golden Week. To appease her, Kazuhiro invited Mary. However, she's still not very used to cars, so she prefers somewhere close, and that reminds Kazuhiro of her first ride with his car. That day was so tiring that she fell asleep. Unfortunately, Kazuhiro said that he's just a humble salaryman, so he can't afford to do all those fancy pants stuff. If only they could bring money from this world to Japan. Mary also wishes to bring magical tomes over, since there's no better place to study. Seems like enough time has passed. Kazuhiro told Mary to get ready. They're almost in place. Mary noticed this flower, flower. Kazuhiro said that it's a custom. He picks flowers during his travels and offers them at monuments. Now, they have arrived at the Uja Peak ruins. This place used to be a quarry. Magic stones used for making magic items could be mined here, so it was really famous. A fort was built to prevent other countries from exploiting the resources here. But for some reason, the magic stones became unharvestable. The ruins became progressively more dilapidated over 200 years, but those who visit this place can still feel the power of the ores resting beneath. Usually, anyone would light up with curiosity after hearing this, but that's not the case for this girl. They have been walking for an hour, and she can't stand the heat already. Kazuhiro pointed at the huge mountain nearby. He said that there's an oasis beyond that crevice. It will be much better once they get there. She just has to endure it for a little longer. Now, he worries if she'll be able to handle Japan's summer. After enduring for a bit, finally Mary wasn't irritated. Looking at the surroundings, she said that it looks like a mountain from afar, but it's all ruins here. It looks completely different. Kazuhiro said that it's pretty much a coal mine, but it has its own culture. There are houses and altars. People must have lived here for quite a while. Mary wondered if magic stones can still be mined here. Kazuhiro said that if they could, people would be rushing here in droves. The country overseeing these ruins even opened up this place for adventurers. They must have really had their hopes up in finding more magic stones, but it's possible that they might find something. So he asked Mary if she would be interested in staying here for a couple nights and investigate, but Mary declined. The climate is a big deal for her. She's more worried about getting dried up than finding some ores. They continued walking until they arrived at the oasis Kazuhiro was talking about. This is the center of the mountain, and there's a gaping hole up here. Water from the falls are falling like a must and becoming vapor in the heat, and these water veins are created entirely by chance. Mary dipped herself in the water, and Kazuhiro quickly warned her to not get too close to the waterfront. The monsters at the waterfront prey on travelers, or so they say, but this might be her prey for leveling up today. Mary asked if they weren't really going to form a party. She won't get any experience even if she takes his kill from the side. Kazuhiro replied that he has his ways, and it's quicker if he'll just show what he meant. As they moved forward with the plan, Mary summoned her fire lizard, catching Kazuhiro's attention since it was his first time witnessing spirit sorcery in action. Curious, he asked Mary how spirit sorcery differs from regular magic. Mary explained that while people often imagine sorcerers casting offensive spells through a staff, spirit sorcery is unique. By charging her staff with mana, it becomes a medium for releasing her magic, allowing her to summon and control elemental spirits like the fire lizard to aid in their endeavors. The main difference between Mary and regular sorcerers is their approach to magic storage and compatibility with spirits. While most sorcerers rely on casting spells directly as needed, Mary can pre-charge or stockpile magic for future use. Apparently, they have good compatibility with spirits, so depending on the amount of magic required, they could keep several of them at a time. Kazuhiro picked up the cute little fire lizard, finding it fascinating, but the moment didn't last long. It burned him, and he quickly dropped it. Laughing it off, he couldn't help but get excited when Mary explained more about her abilities. The fact that she could summon multiple spirits and didn't even need incantations to use her magic amazed him. To Kazuhiro, that made her class incredibly rare and valuable, something that left him both impressed and a little envious of her unique skills. Kazuhiro said it was fine, but Mary was still doubting if it's really okay for them not to form a party. Of course, fighting solo is more efficient for gaining experience, but if she steals his skill, she won't get any experience. She wondered what he was thinking. As Kazuhiro faced a monster, he strategized carefully, aiming to hit it at just the right angle to expose its heart before using his first skill to deliver a decisive blow. The skill Honest is a beginner-level ability that records a specific movement and repeats it flawlessly. Kazuhiro was ready to put it to the test. He called out to Mary, but when she turned and saw a horde of monsters chasing after him, she immediately panicked. The sight of Kazuhiro running with so many creatures on his heels was enough to make her question his plan, or if there even was one. Kazuhiro quickly reassured Mary to trust him and aim carefully. She summoned her fire lizard and cast the skill Flame Spear. Just as the spear was about to hit Kazuhiro's position, he activated the skill Over the Road, which allowed him to teleport instantly within his line of sight. However, this skill had limitations. It only worked within 50 meters and couldn't handle heavy loads, forcing Kazuhiro to forego wearing most armor. Despite these restrictions, he had cleverly modified it for swift, precise movements. Mary was surprised to find out she received all the XP from the attack. Excited yet cautious, Kazuhiro instructed her to get ready for the next round. He dashed off once more to gather more monsters, shouting back to Mary to fire at will when he gave the signal. Mary, still amazed by their teamwork, prepared to summon her magic again, determined to hit her mark this time without hesitation. From the ruins, these men were watching. They mentioned that Kazuhiro was quick and tough, but the sorcerer must also use a spell to lower their defense. One of them used the skill Steel Eyes, and learned that Kazuhiro was holding some valuable stuff, the dragon's scale and blood. That got them excited, so they cooked up a plan to rob him. They even dragged a kid into it, with the leader telling the kid not to be scared because they were desperate for money to survive. The ruins are marked as a dangerous area due to frequent kidnappings and missing person cases, which makes it clear that these kids are seriously out of their depth. After gaining 5 levels in just over 3 hours, Mary and Kazuhiro took a break. Mary used to take years just to level up once, so this was was a huge improvement for her. However, despite Kazuhiro's praise for her fast and sharp spellcasting, she seemed a little upset. It's clear she was processing her progress, but she couldn't quite shake off her unease. Kazuhiro noticed Mary's frustration and tried to cheer her up. He explained that even though her leveling seemed slow, it was because she was using both spirit magic and sorcery at the same time, which was a lot to handle. He reminded her that she'd need to level up her skills separately, which would take extra effort. Kazuhiro assured her that, despite the hard work, her progress was impressive, and she just had to keep at it. Hopefully, this made her feel a bit better about her situation. Mary tells him the truth. Back at the Sorcerer's Guild, her colleagues were always boasting about their high levels, so surpassing them easily makes her feel conflicted. At the same time, she also felt refreshed. Mary feels a bit guilty, thinking she's been holding Kazuhiro back because of her weakness. She had hoped they'd level up together while talking, but now, she's determined that one day, he won't be able to get by without her. Kazuhiro took out the bento boxes for a meal and mentioned that with the grand experience skill Mary just gained, she could increase her experience points. Since there's still time before nightfall, they planned to try and level up some more. Mary, while enjoying the meal, thought about how quickly she was improving and felt a bit more motivated. Kazuhiro was on high alert, using his intuition skill to detect any signs of malice or bloodthirst. He had sensed that someone was watching them since they arrived, but he didn't think much of it. But he didn't think they were much of a threat and thought that he could deter them by showing them the difference in their abilities while leveling. But it seems like it was not the case. The child from earlier was holding this stone, and from there a huge monster appeared from beneath the water. Kazuhiro has already used his long-range movement skill for the day. Plus, the weight limit is preventing him from using his short-range movement skill. To overcome this situation, there's only one thing they can do. If he keeps hugging Mary like this, they will die instantly. Both of them woke up full of sweat. After seeing Mary alive, Kazuhiro immediately hugged her, and a sigh of relief came out from him. But after realizing their closeness, he immediately withdrew himself. Both of them didn't expect that to happen. Their hearts were still racing. But one thing is for sure, that the monster was being controlled by the kid, and the kid was being pressured by the bandits. These bandits started tailing them as they entered the ruins. By now, they're probably searching their bodies and bags as they speak, but since they jumped worlds, they probably won't find anything. However, Kazuhiro was worried for the child because it seemed a little frightened. Mary glanced at the clock and learned that it was already 6 a.m. By this time, Kazuhiro should be getting work. However, it is his day off today, so he will be helping her out with her studies. But it's been a while, so he thinks it would be nice to go outside. The government was regulating the river flow. Even though it's so pretty, Mary believes that the spirits are feeling down. Kazuhiro said that it's necessary since they're crucial for flood control. There used to be a lot of flooding incidents. They've been regulating it since the Edo period. 400 years of flood prevention. Kazuhiro asked Mary if she could hear the water spirits. Mary seems like she can't. She still can't hear their voices. There's a sort of barrier between her and the spirits of this world. They don't seem to trust her yet. It reminds her of when she was a child. Kazuhiro asked if it could be that she's going through what he did. This world and her world are different. That's why in Japan, she doesn't meet the requirements to speak to the spirits, because she's level 1. So, this means that Mary just needs to interact with them more than. She wanted to try when she had time. Their conversation was cut off when a cat showed up. Instantly, Mary fell in love with it. Now that he thinks about it, Kazuhiro believes that there's no equivalent of a cat in her world. Mary asked if cats were common here. He replied that especially since they're in a downtown area, it's quite common to rear cats. The cat just moved towards Mary, and she can't already contain herself. Kazuhiro said not to touch him just yet, because cats will let you know when they want to be touched. The cat continued getting closer to her, as if it was asking her to pet him. So, Mary did, and she was happy with how soft its fur was. She started to have more fun when she began to tickle the cat. Mary must have lost herself. She began acting like a cat, and kept making the meow sound, so Kazuhiro couldn't help but laugh at her silliness, that his whole body was shaking. Apart from the library, the region that he can live in has a lot of other public facilities. That being said, the more developed facilities are a bit too far of a walk. For today, they'll just be visiting the neighborhood's small library. Mary shrieked when the door opened. On her defense, the door opening by itself isn't what scared her. It's the sound the glass made when it opened out of nowhere. The restaurant's doors also opened like that though. This library is way more colorful than Mary thought it would be. Books are damaged by sunlight, so they must be valuable, just like in her world. She thought that this world is very advanced in terms of their literacy rate, after finding that a children's section exists. In her world, only about 30% of the population is literate. Basically, only nobles and mages can read. Realizing they were in the children's section, she asks if he planned on making her read children's book. Kazuhiro said that there are a lot of interesting books over here, and if they don't find anything they like, they can go to a different section. Mary knows that there's no way she would be interested in children's books, but she at least wanted to check them out. She was mesmerized by how pretty and colorful the books were. Kazuhiro already knew that she was just trying to hide her excitement. He picked up a book and showed it to her. If he can remember it correctly, this series is about a cat that travels around the world. Mary asked if this book is not popular anymore because it seems pretty to her. He replied that books fall out of fashion too. Mary decided to read and give it a try, but she was worried that there are some characters she won't be able to read. So, Kazuhiro offered to read it on the bed tonight. It's a custom in other countries, but if you read a picture book before you sleep, you'll dream about it. Since it piqued her interest, he wanted to borrow it. However, Mary was hesitant since she thought that it might get dirty or someone may steal it. Kazuhiro assured her that it's not that big of a deal to borrow books. They'll just have to return it after a short amount of time. And when that time comes, he'll come with her to return it. Mary returned with a book featuring a frog on the cover, but still preferred the first book with the cat, hoping to meet it in her dreams. But she still thinks that the first book was her favorite because the cat looks exactly like the one from this morning. She can't for tonight. She wanted to meet the cat in his dreams, but Kazuhiro's pretty sure the one she'll meet is a snake. Without wasting time, they head over to the reception desk to check them out. However, awkward silence is what happened when Kazuhiro recognized the girl in front. She was Ichigo. Although it was a bit awkward earlier, they greeted each other warmly now. Ichigo asked what seems to be the issue with this cute little girl he brought along. She must have asked this because Mary kept wriggling, looking back and forth on them. Kazuhiro explained that she's a relative from overseas and is interested in borrowing some picture books. Mary whispered to him and asked who she was. Kazuhiro introduced Ichigo and said that she's a librarian here. Ichigo asked for her name, and Kazuhiro knew that this was a great opportunity for her to practice Japanese. Stuttering a bit, she managed to introduce herself. However, she was curious as to why Ichigo added a chan at the end of her name. She wondered if she pronounced her name incorrectly. Kazuhiro explained that it's an honorific. Both chan and kun are attached to the end of names quite often, but chan is normally used with cute people who are younger than you. Looking back at Ichigo, Mary definitely knows that she's cute, female, and definitely looks younger, so she greeted her with a chan on her name as well. Instantly, Ichigo's mouth dropped, saying it was too much for her to address her like that. But it also troubles her that she does it unconsciously then. An idea pops into her mind and looked at Kazuhiro meaningfully. Horror was visible on Kazuhiro's face as soon as he realized what she was talking about. He quickly declined the idea. Besides, he doesn't have the guts to do that in the first place. He looked at the confused Mary and said that she's a cute girl. He wouldn't want to disappoint her. Ichigo advised that it's better to keep this relationship the way it is right now. Kazuhiro agreed, and she said that she won't probe any further. Looking at her computer, Ichigo thinks there have been changes in his address based on his library card. Now that she mentioned it, Kazuhiro used to come here when he lived at his old address. He changed his address a while ago. With this, Ichigo asked to see his driver's license for a bit. Upon looking at it, she knew it was the same apartment as her. It was both unexpected for her, but she offered that they should have a meal together someday. Kazuhiro thinks it's also a great idea, but if you had asked Ichigo more, she just wanted to be able to get along with Mary, so both of them exchanged phone numbers. Maybe Mary just made her first friend since coming to Japan. Kazuhiro was busy stirring his ingredients when Mary came and squeezed his arm. She wanted to ask something about the thing they borrowed from the other store. She knows that the book they borrowed has moving pictures. However, she held this CD on her face and said that she can't see any pictures on it. Kazuhiro apologized for not teaching her earlier. After placing it on the player, the pictures started moving, which left Mary mesmerized. She asked if there was some magic in it. Kazuhiro replied that it's mostly hand-drawn since it's an animation. She couldn't believe what she was seeing and wondered how much effort they put into it. Kazuhiro left her there and tended on his cooking. They still had some time until dinner, so he decided to make pancakes since it's the perfect occasion. While eating, Mary asked if it's alright to start from the beginning because there were a lot of parts where she didn't quite understand what they were doing. If it's possible, she would like to hear his explanation while they watch. But before that, Kazuhiro closed his curtains. They might as well make the room dark. Mary asked why he was doing it. Kazuhiro replied that this will give them the feeling of a movie theater. He explained that they call these movies where they show them in large theaters to a crowd of people. The movies are shown in a completely dark room, on a massive screen that allows for people to be immersed in the story once they are in the room. Mary said she wanted to go and try that. Well, Kazuhiro's television is personal sized, so it might be a bit small, but it's all good. The screen showed these two siblings who moved to the countryside. They live a more primeval lifestyle as compared to them. This animation was shown in theaters a relatively long time ago. Then, this man was shown and Mary thought that he looked like Kazuhiro, a sleepy head. This is what Japan's countryside looked like back then. The area around Kazuhiro's grandpa's house still has the same feeling to it. Mary wanted to visit, so Kazuhiro said that they should go during next month-long break, and after some time, the show ended. Kazuhiro was just asking Mary how she felt with it, when Mary suddenly jumped on top of him and said that it was super-duper interesting for her. She couldn't really follow what they were saying that well, but she felt happy after watching it. Kazuhiro asked if she could get off him now, but it seems like Mary isn't done yet. A sigh escaped from her and expressed how wonderful it was. Even though they're just pictures, they're so lively. Kazuhiro replied that it's not just pictures, it's a full-fledged story. Books are great and elm for Mary, but she really loves it when her imagination runs wild. Though just now, she felt as though she was being guided through a world that someone else has created. Kazuhiro said that because it was made to be easily comprehensible, Japan has a lot of shows like that, and once she learns Japanese, she'll be able to enjoy them way more. With full determination on her face, she said that she will learn Japanese. Not being able to understand these things is getting so annoying that she can't stand it anymore. Then, much to Kazuhiro's surprise, she leaned towards Kazuhiro couldn't help but blush, but only for Mary to ask if she can watch the show from the beginning one more time. These days they have settled on having a light meal for breakfast and lunch, after which dinner and lunch over in the other world are heavier meals. It appears to be that their appetites are shared between both worlds. In short, it totals out to 4 meals. In any case, it comes out to about just the right amount of caloric intake per day, though he's not sure they reach a calorie surplus anyway. But Mary is on the slender side, so a bit more weight gained wouldn't be a bad thing. He was busy cooking when an earthquake occurred. It was a little strong, but it seemed like it's anything to be worried about. But this is what he needs to be worried about. Mary is running towards him, completely naked. Blood ran towards his face when Mary hugged him. A scream erupted from both of them when another earthquake occurred. Both of them were really panicking, especially Mary. So, Kazuhiro has to explain that it's nothing to be worried about, and showed his phone for Mary to see that the government even made an announcement. But, for the starter, she asked Mary to wear her clothes. When Mary realized, she started flushing like a tomato, and made Kazuhiro close his eyes. She told him not to move his hands until she's back. Kazuhiro was too shocked both from the earthquake and Mary that his knees started to feel jelly. After wearing proper clothes, Mary shyly apologized for what happened. Earthquakes are just so rare for her that she lost composure. Kazuhiro bowed down on the floor and apologized as well. Their meal for today is curry. According to Kazuhiro, it's growing to become a traditional Japanese dish. However, today's curry is a bit different taste-wise compared to more conventional curry. After tasting a spoonful, Mary immediately complained how spicy it was. Kazuhiro was under the impression that she could handle spicy foods. Mary took another spoonful and realized that maybe it's spicy, but on the other hand, the meat is giving off a sweet feeling. Now that she thinks about it, the desert region in the other world also uses similar tasting seasonings. Food spoils faster in hot weather, so maybe that's why they tend to use so many spices. Speaking of the desert, Mary remembered the monster. She asked if they'll wake up at the same place as the last time. Kazuhiro said that the location where he wakes up usually changes from time to time. If he had to guess though, they'll probably wake up at the same place this time. Mary noticed that he seems awfully relaxed about their situation. Even though they can return back to this place, it still doesn't change the fact that they're putting their lives at risk. Kazuhiro understood what she was trying to say, but he said that they can return to the oasis without anything to be worried about now. The hint is, the things you couldn't do yesterday are things you can do today. He was talking about his once-a-day long-range movement skill. This is why he was confident. Though, there is only one condition where skills cannot be used. That's in the presence of a great aberrant entity. For example, a magic dragon. Maybe the gods have decided not to interfere because the god of travel didn't respond to his call when they faced the arc dragon. But he still thinks that it will be alright if it's the monster from yesterday. But there seems to be an issue. The child. The child looked like a half-beast. Kazuhiro thought that they were being forced by someone to summon that monster. He believes that the magical catalyst that the child was holding has something to do with it, and Kazuhiro wanted to discuss it with her. The time they'll be spending in the dream world today will be quite short. That's because they have one more thing to do before they head to bed, and that would be this: reading the book of the Black Cat and the Country of the Night. Ever since Mary came over to this world, Kazuhiro feels like he has been spending more time in it. Up until now, nothing about Japan was appealing to him, which is why he spent a lot of time enjoying himself as a child in the dream world. But, ever since Mary came into his life, everything seems to be better. They woke up at the same place as expected. Mary noticed that there seemed to have a lot of sand. Kazuhiro thinks it was because of the monster's hot sand attack. The plan was this: they officially formed a party. Their goal for today is to rescue the half-beast child. They probably have to fight the bandits too. Kazuhiro said that he will send her a signal if things get rough. If things come up to that point, Mary promised to join him and use Train to break them out. Then, they began their operation. Mary summoned her sun spirit and used this familiar cloak to make them invisible. The sun spirit's invisibility spell made Kazuhiro amazed because he can't really see Mary. Mary said that if a sleepyhead like him could still see her, she wouldn't be using it. Mary explained that she will be moving as slowly as she can, but she can't hide her footsteps or her scent. Depending on who the enemy is, she could be found. But she's an elementalist, and she can take care of herself, so Kazuhiro doesn't have to worry for her. Before they parted their ways, Mary told Kazuhiro that when they get back, they should continue reading that picture book. For the most part, their enemy can be divided into two groups. There's the sand monster from yesterday, and the others who are hiding. But first, he needs to split from Mary and deal with anything that could threaten her. If he keeps this up, the bandits should focus on him, while Mary makes her preparations. Mary summoned more fire lizards and hid them all in the sand. Kazuhiro believes that they need to overwhelm these guys with an illusion of numbers. Given their current situation, they can't afford to go all out with raw power. Using his intuition skill, he saw the bandits. There are a total of 8 people. Kazuhiro kept fighting rigorously. Good thing, he spent so much time practicing his escapes. Through their party, they both have a connection with each other. Mary said that she'll draw that monster's attention, so he can focus on finding the kid. Kazuhiro said that he will be relying on her. These words made her so motivated to do these things. Mary's already summoned 10 fire lizards, and they're attacking from all directions while hiding and moving in the sand. In other words, they're gorilla tanks that can only shoot one shot. On top of that, Mary doesn't need to get near the action. While all of this was happening, Mui, the half-beast child, had been quietly watching from the shadows. He started crying, frantic to find his grandpa. That's when Kazuhiro came. Mui was completely off guard. Kazuhiro assured him that he won't do anything to hurt him. To Mui's surprise, Kazuhiro spoke to him in half-beast tongue. Kazuhiro told him that studying languages is his hobby. Then, Kazuhiro asked if he was alone, or if any of his friends got kidnapped too. Mui said that he was alone. Kazuhiro extended his hand, offering Mui a way out. He had seen enough to know that humans often had their own motives, and he feared Kazuhiro might use him like others had before. Also, it seems like he already accepted his fate. Mui hesitated for a moment, but then, a memory from his grandpa's stories came rushing back to him. When his grandpa was a child, he had once gotten caught in a trap in the human lands. As he struggled, a human child had found him. At first, he thought the human would harm him, but instead, the child freed his leg from the snare. Afterward, the child reached out his hand to him. It was small and warm. His grandpa had always said that was when he knew the human child had a kind heart. Knowing this, tears welled up in Mui's eyes as he looked at Kazuhiro. His small body shook as he realized that he didn't want to hurt anyone anymore. He didn't want to keep following the bandits' orders. Kazuhiro gave him a warm smile, stating that he would save him. However, a dagger was thrown towards them, but he managed to block it. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind. The bandits had found them. One of the bandits smirked and said that he had figured out how they escaped unscathed yesterday. He was convinced it had to be some kind of teleportation skill. Kazuhiro asked if the bandit could remove his slavery from the kid. The bandit considered the offer. He then proposed a deal. He'd trade the kid for the treasure Kazuhiro has. If Kazuhiro agreed, he'd crush the binding stone. Kazuhiro saw through the bandit's bluff immediately. He wasn't about to hand over his main source of income, especially not so easily. The bandit's logic didn't apply to someone like Kazuhiro. In a swift move, Kazuhiro grabbed the binding stone right out of the bandit's hands. The bandit's face twisted with anger. He was now determined to make Kazuhiro pay, vowing to cut off his arms and legs and then cover his wounds with salt, a good and cruel way to end his life. Outside, Mary heard the sounds of swords clashing, and she thought the fight had already started. Suddenly, her fire lizard appeared from the ground and commended it for its good work. She asked if the lizard could go on. Then she bumped her staff to the lizard to boost its stamina, then ran towards the monster to fight it again. Mary let out a sigh, then flicked her ear and said she had to hold on just a little longer. On the other hand, Kazuhiro busied himself interacting with the bandits. The bandit with a bandana cursed him, while our Johnny Sin from the 18th century stood like Mayweather in full defense and charged towards Kazuhiro. Seeing this, Kazu thought this bald guy had charged in with his arms wide open and looked like he was begging to be cut off at that rate. All of a sudden, Kazu got hit, thinking the bandit's armor transformed and this guy was a tank. Nevertheless, he got cornered at the edge and got mocked for letting his guard down. Then the bald-headed bandit tried to push him, but Kazu moved and dodged the attack, causing the bald man to fall off the cliff facing the monster. On the other side, their leader was stunned, thinking that Kazu had disappeared, and he just appeared in mid-air. Kazu asked Mui if she was okay, and explained to her that it was his first skill, Phantom Image, his ultimate trump card, the skill that creates an illusion of oneself. This skill is probably where his class Illusory Swordsman got its name, and Reprise, which lets him record and retreat movements, while Overload allows short-range teleportation. These three are his main combat skills, and bandits correctly inferred that he specialized in mobility. On that note, he's not good at protection, so he advised Mui to try her best not to get seen. After that, the two hid behind the broken wall, and Kazu asked Mui if she would really be okay, since the place was in such bad shape. The oasis is surrounded by precipitous cliffs. The cliff faces have numerous structures strewn about them. Still, they had such an advantage. Meanwhile, the bandits looked for him, but Kazu appeared behind them, hiding in the bushes. They tried to attack him, but Kazu easily dodged. He was shocked to see an arrow shot toward him, but he managed to evade it. He did a 360-degree flip mid-air, and used the hilt of his sword to strike the bandit's head. The archer was having a hard time hitting him. The other bandit tried to attack him from behind. Kazu used his Phantom Image, and the bandit was pissed off as he hit an illusion again. He gritted his teeth in anger and shouted, cursing Kazu. Kazu thought there wasn't much good footing with everything being so worn down, but neither of them could go down to ground level with all the monsters around. If he could, he'd pick them off at his own pace and look at the bandit's leader, observing that he was being guarded by two monkeys. They had been observing the monster from the start. He was getting a bad feeling about that, and that's why he didn't like fighting other humans. Moreover, their leader closed his eyes, used his steel eyes, and saw Mary hiding in the bushes. He then shouted, telling them that the elf was hiding down there. Kazu was shocked to hear this. He then commanded his two monkeys to drag her out. Kazu found out that they weren't monitoring the monster, and the leader must have been using a detection-type skill to search for Mary. As the two monkeys rushed towards Mary, Kazu appeared from behind and tried to cut them off, using his Overload skill. But suddenly, the leader smirked and commanded it to burn Kazu into ashes. After that, a fire magic skill was used on them. The two monkeys were burned alive and fell off the cliff. While Kazu managed to get out, he shook his burning arm to put out the flames. But it wasn't because he thought that flames were a debuff. Kazu thought those two ugly bandits were not ordinary. They were mages. However, the leader was surprised to find Kazu Kazu still alive, and said he guessed Kazu would appear next to Mui. Now Kazu understood the reason why the leader took out his monkeys, because it was so hard for them to restrict his movement, since he specializes in mobility. So, by using the subordinates he set on Mary as bait to force him into action, the leader continued to mock him while Kazu remained silent for a moment, then used his overload and abruptly appeared beside Mui. The leader confronted him, saying he was aware that Kazu's skill had a weight limit and that he wouldn't escape with Mui. This is true because Kazu has exceeded the weight limit of his overload. It frustrates him because, with that weight, he can't use his overload, and his arm's strength is being halved with that debuff. Instead, the leader urged him to just give up already and throw that sword down. Therefore, Kazu obeyed him and dropped the sword on the ground. The leader couldn't believe he just surrendered too quickly, and to his surprise, Kazu's weight limit was cleared, and he could now use his overload. So Kazu hugged Mui, told her to hold on tight, used his overload skill, and escaped. Chapters end at 13. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you loved this manga. Have a good day.